Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. We have more gaming and PlayStation news, rumours and leaks to go over. If you enjoyed today's video, please show your support by hitting that like button, and don't forget to tune into the PlayStation podcast every Sunday at 7 PM UK time. Right then, we have some big rumours coming out that Sony is interested in acquiring Warner Brother assets, including their gaming division and their gaming studio. So earlier this month, Warner Brothers announced that it's planning to split itself into two separate businesses by the middle of 2026, each focused on different areas of their massive entertainment empire. Now, the first new company will be called WBD Global Networks. This one's going to stick with the more traditional stuff like cable television, including sports, news, and general entertainment. Think of it as like a classic TV side of things. Now, the second branch is where things start to get really interesting. It's going to be called WBD Streaming and Studios, and it will include all the big names that make Warner Brothers, things like HBO, film and TV production, and their entire gaming division. Basically, this is a side that handles the big budget content most people know and love. Shows like Game of Thrones, Succession, IP like the DC Universe and Harry Potter. Now, some industry analysts think that the move isn't just about reorganizing the business. There's speculation that Warner Brothers Discovery is actually preparing to sell off the streaming and gaming half of their business, hence the restructuring. And guess who's rumored to be first in line to buy it? That's right, Sony. According to a report from the wrestling and entertainment site SE Scoops, Sony is already eyeing the WBD Streaming and Studios division as a potential acquisition. Now, while this is just a rumor at this stage, SE Scoops does have a decent track record when it comes to the sports side of things, the wrestling world. So typically when they say things, it tends to be pretty much spot on. It's still important to take this with a pinch of salt since nothing official has been confirmed yet, but we did have rumors last year of Sony interested in WB Games or WB Studios. But if this does happen, it could be a massive move for Sony. Buying WBD Streaming and Studios would instantly give Sony control over some of the biggest franchises in entertainment. And we're talking about DC superheroes, Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, and a huge library of films and shows currently under the HBO brand. Plus, it could be a massive boost for Sony's gaming division too. Let's be real, Warner Brothers has some major gaming IP, but they've had a pretty rough time lately. Warner Brothers Games has been going through some rough ups and downs over the last few years. On the one hand, they've got a huge hit with Hogwarts Legacy. That game sold incredibly well and brought in a ton of attention to the Harry Potter gaming universe, and the Legacy Batman games are also phenomenally popular, but other projects haven't been so lucky. Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League was a critical and commercial flop. Gotham Knights didn't meet expectations, and Multiverses, which had a lot of potential as a free-to-play crossover fighter, fizzled out after launch. And to make matters much worse, the studio behind the Wonder Woman game, Monolith Productions, was recently shut down. That game was cancelled before it even saw the light of day. So even with big names like DC and Mortal Kombat, the games division has been struggling financially. Just recently, Warner Brothers made a major internal shakeup to try and turn things around. According to a new report by Variety, WB Games has now been restructured into 4 main divisions, each one focused on a specific franchise: Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, Mortal Kombat, and DC Universe. They've even appointed specific executives to oversee the development of games tied to each brand. So for example, Yves Lachance, who used to run WB Games Montreal, is now in charge of all game development for Harry Potter and Game of Thrones. Sean Himmerich, formerly the head of NetherRealm Studios, that's the team behind Mortal Kombat, will now lead development for both Mortal Kombat and DC Universe. And Stephen Fleneroy, previously in charge of WB Games New York, is now responsible for the tech and support side of the business, things like publishing tools, QA testing, and customer service. These leaders will now oversee the various studios under WB Games based on which franchise they're working on. For instance, Avalanche Software, the team behind Hogwarts Legacy, will report to Lachance. Meanwhile, Rocksteady Studios, which previously worked on the Batman Arkham games and most recently the Suicide Squad game, will report to Himmerich. All of them will answer to JB Peretti, the CEO in charge of Warner Brothers Global Streaming and Gaming Division. Warner Brothers is clearly doubling down on their 4 major franchises. They're trying to tighten up their game development around these strong, recognizable IPs to avoid more failed launches. The goal is to build a more focused strategy and create long-term plans for their top brands. And if Sony does step in and actually buy WBD Streaming and Studios, it could mean a massive shift, not just for TV and movies, but for gaming too. But here's something important to point out. It's unlikely that Sony would make these games exclusive to PlayStation. And these franchises are massive and they are multi-plat titles, right? Titles like Hogwarts Legacy or Mortal Kombat have massive fan bases across all platforms. Making them exclusive would mean losing out on a ton of sales and player engagement. Even when Sony bought Bungie, the creators of Destiny, they allowed them to keep releasing games on multiple platforms. So that strategy probably would carry over here too, right? What do you reckon? Do you think if they bought Warner Brothers, they'd make those games exclusives? At the moment, nothing is set in stone. Of course, it's just a rumor. The Warner Brothers split won't officially happen until 2026, and a potential Sony acquisition probably wouldn't be announced until at least 2027 if it happens at all. So guys, what do you think? If Sony acquired WBD Gaming, do you think those games would be kept multi-plat like they are currently, or do you think Sony will make them exclusive to PlayStation? Imagine a new Batman game, for example, a single-player Batman game. Do you think that will be a multi-plat game or just exclusive to PlayStation? Have a think, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and let's move on. Now, last night, there was an announcement from Bungie. They officially announced a delay for its upcoming sci-fi extraction shooter, Marathon. And the game was originally set to launch on September the 23rd, 2025, but that's no longer happening. Now, delays, as we know, are not unusual in game development. In fact, they've become pretty common, especially for studios trying to meet high expectations. But in this case, Bungie has been very transparent about why they're pushing things back, and it comes down to player feedback. Well, at least that's what they're telling us. After showing off the game and putting it through its early alpha playtest, Bungie received a flood of generally negative feedback from players across social media, Discord, and community forums. Now, to be fair, players shared their feedback and they shared what they liked, what they didn't like, and what they wanted to see in terms of improvements. Bungie listened, and instead of rushing to hit the original release date, the team decided to take a step back and rework some major parts of the game. Now, they haven't given a new release date just yet, but they've promised to share more updates in the fall of 2025. So we will be waiting a bit longer. The goal here is to deliver a better, more polished experience that really lives up to the expectations of the Marathon game. For anyone unfamiliar, Marathon is actually a revival of a classic Bungie franchise from the 1990s. The original Marathon game helped lay the groundwork for what would later become Halo. So this just isn't another sci-fi shooter, it's Bungie going back to its roots. But this is a new version of Marathon, and it's not a remake. It's being reimagined as a PvP-focused extraction shooter where players explore a hostile sci-fi world, gather loot, and try to survive long enough to escape with their gear. Now, Bungie says the game will focus on tension, mystery, and survival under pressure. It's meant to be a blend of high-stakes combat with narrative depth, something they're known for. The delay isn't just about polishing visuals or fixing bugs. Bungie has taken the opportunity to reshape major elements of the game based entirely on what players told them during the testing. Now, I don't know how difficult or how easy this is going to be. Don't forget, the game was due to be released in September, so the game is practically done. It's made. The development has been completed for some while, and what they're doing now is polish. But if they've taken all this feedback on, realistically, how much of the game can they actually change? These are the points that they're going to be working on now. Making the survival element stronger, smarter and more challenging enemies, more rewarding gameplay loops, strategic combat over mindless shooting. They're going to double down on storytelling and make it a bit more darker and have a more mature tone. They're going to enhance the visual quality, and they're going to make the game more social and connected. So look, it's always disappointing to see a game get delayed, but I think Marathon needed it. The delay might actually be a good thing here. Bungie is using the extra time to make Marathon a better game shaped directly by the people, I suppose, who will be playing it in the end. That's something we don't always see in the industry. It's either delaying it, improving the game, and then releasing it, or it's going to be scrapping it altogether. And I don't think Sony really wants to scrap another live service game, especially as they acquired this studio for over $3 billion, especially to make live service games. I don't think that's something Sony would even want to comprehend at this stage. So I think they're going to have to go down this route of trying to delay it to make it better and then release it. I think that's their plan rather than scrapping it. In the past, Bungie has built its reputation on delivering high-quality first-person shooter experiences. If taking a few more months or even a year is what it takes to make Marathon a better experience, then the delay is probably worth it. And if you're a fan of Bungie's older titles or just someone looking for a fresh sci-fi shooter, then keep your eyes on this one. As I've said many times before, I'm not a fan of live service games. This game coming out or not coming out doesn't do anything for me. But what does hurt every time I see a live service game from Sony being delayed or cancelled is the thought that this game that's being worked on and delayed or cancelled comes at the cost of a single player game which we could have had from a Sony first party studio. That's the bit that really sticks. But guys, let me know your thoughts on the delay to Marathon. Good call or not? Should Sony have scrapped it, or are they doing the right thing? Let me know in the comments and let's move on. Bloober Team, the developer behind the upcoming third-person survival horror game Chronos: The New Dawn, has announced a significant partnership with Skybound Games to bring a physical edition of the game to PlayStation 5. This is a major development for the studio and it marks a crucial step in their growth as a developer. In a recent statement, Pietro Babiano, the CEO of Bloober Team, highlighted just how important this collaboration is. He emphasized that Skybound Games has proven its strength in global game distribution, pointing to its successful physical release of the Callisto Protocol as a key example. For Bloober Team, working with Skybound is about more than just getting their game to physical stores. It's about building on their strategy for growth and marketing. Chronos: The New Dawn is being positioned as the studio's strongest original title yet, and they're confident it will help take Bloober to a new height. The game is set to launch this fall for PlayStation 5, Xbox and PC via both Steam and the Epic Games Store. Fans of horror games can expect an intense experience as Chronos: The New Dawn aims to immerse players in a rich, terrifying world. While the game's release may be coming soon, the addition of physical copies to the distribution mix is a strategic move that shows just how committed Bloober Team is to expanding their reach and building a strong fan base. So yeah, really good move for Team Bloober. After the release of Silent Hill 2, they're really building a strong reputation for horror games. And from the trailers that I've seen so far for Chronos, this game looks fantastic. So guys, who's buying the physical copy of the game? Are you buying it physically or are you buying it digitally? Let me know your thoughts in the comments and let's move on. Stellar Blade, the action-packed game that took the PlayStation 5 by storm last year. The game was so successful that it not only boosted the profile of the developer shakeup, but it also rewarded the team with some significant perks, including PlayStation 5 Pros all round for all the team and large bonuses. Stellar Blade was well received by players and critics alike, and the excitement continued to build when it was confirmed that the game would also be making its way to PC. That port was a huge success, and it helped the game surpass 3 million copies, with 1 million copies being sold in the last 3 to 4 days. In celebration of this milestone, shakeup's CEO Hyung Tae Kim gifted the studio staff with Nintendo Switch 2 consoles, an extra layer of excitement to an already impressive achievement. However, things took an interesting turn when rumors started to swirl around that Stellar Blade could be making its way to the next-gen Nintendo Switch 2 console. According to reports translated by Automation, the studio had received dev kits for the new system on the same day they received the consoles. This has fueled speculation that a port of Stellar Blade for Switch 2 might be in the works. But before fans start to get too excited, a representative from shakeup was quick to address these rumors. In a statement to Play Forum, they clarified that nothing is confirmed when it comes to a Switch 2 version of Stellar Blade. Of course, that's the kind of response you'd expect from any developer in this situation. It's always smart to keep things vague until an official announcement is made. That being said though, the studio has already confirmed that Stellar Blade 2 is in development and is expected to release before 2027. So while we may not know yet whether the game will make it to the Switch 2, there's still plenty of excitement surrounding the future of the franchise. For now, fans will have to keep their fingers crossed and stay tuned for any official updates. I mean, Stellar Blade is making some big moves following its success on the PlayStation 5. It's a big move to PC that has gone really well. They've got a sequel already in the works for Stellar Blade 2, and now reports of the game potentially coming to Switch 2. Everything seems to be going well right now for shakeup, who have done a fantastic job with this game. Guys, let's move on. So in a somewhat unexpected but big announcement, Microsoft has officially confirmed that work on its next generation Xbox hardware is already underway. So I guess we are getting another Xbox generation then after this one, right? What makes this announcement even more significant is that Microsoft will be continuing its partnership with AMD, the same chip maker that has powered previous Xbox consoles and is now also working closely with Sony on the upcoming PlayStation 6. This news came directly from Xbox President Sarah Bond, who appeared in a recent video update to share Microsoft's vision for the future of Xbox hardware. She explained that the company has signed a multi-year strategic partnership with AMD to co-develop custom silicon for its upcoming devices. But this just isn't about building a more powerful console. Microsoft wants to reshape how and where people play games. Bond made it clear that the next generation of Xbox won't be limited to just one box in your living room. Instead, Microsoft is focusing on a more flexible gaming ecosystem. Whether you're on a home console, a handheld device, a gaming PC, or even streaming from the cloud, the idea is that your games and your Xbox experience should follow you wherever you go. I mean, it sounds pretty good if you ask me, right? What do you think? I mean, what it means is cross-device play, support for multiple game stores like Steam and Epic Game Store, and hardware that feels more like an open PC than a lockdown console. This direction could signal a major change within the gaming industry. Traditionally, console makers have always sold hardware at a loss, making up the difference through game software and subscription services. Locking players to a single ecosystem was a core part of that business model, and to be fair, it still is if you take a look at what's happening with PlayStation and the Nintendo Switch. But Microsoft seems to be breaking away from that, aiming to provide gamers with freedom instead of restrictions. Interestingly, Sony is also working with AMD on its own next-gen hardware under the codename Project Amethyst. Sony has hinted that the PlayStation 6 is a top priority for the company, though they've revealed less about how open their platform will be. There is speculation that the PlayStation 6 will use AMD's powerful 3D stack chip technology, suggesting high-end performance is a priority for both Xbox and PlayStation. Still, Microsoft's openness raises questions. Will the next Xbox be powerful enough to compete with a traditional PC? If it truly supports third-party storefronts, will Xbox players even need Microsoft's own store or Game Pass anymore? And with PlayStation already releasing many of its first-party titles on Steam, does this mean that those games that were released on Steam will one day run on Xbox hardware? There's still many unknowns, but what's clear is this: Microsoft is betting on a future where consoles are no longer closed systems. They want Xbox to be more of a platform than a product, one that's available across devices, adaptable to how you want to play, and is not tied down to any single ecosystem. What are your thoughts, guys? I mean, I don't understand how Microsoft benefits if there are other storefronts on their hardware. I mean, if games are cheaper to buy on Steam, which they traditionally are, than console, and somebody wants to buy a game on the Xbox platform but for Steam, Microsoft or Xbox gets nothing from that, right? From that customer purchase. I just don't see how Microsoft or Xbox benefits from the scenario that I've just painted there. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think of this and the content discussed in the video today, and I'll catch you on the next video.